Dawson Rider Team.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here. This is going to be my full season review for Power Rangers Beast Morphers Season 2 based on the International Airings, allowing us to see the rest of the second half. So for those of you that don't want the spoilers, I'm actually going to be doing a spoiler-free quick review, giving my thoughts on the quality of the season if you're interested in that. So look out for that in a couple days. So I will be doing that for those of you that don't want to know the spoilers. But for those of you on Team International Spoilers, this is the video for you. I'm going to be talking about Season 2 overall, and then I'll talk a little bit about when I'll be reviewing the whole series at the end of the video, because I don't want to bore you with all that. And now I'm talking about how I'm not going to bore you with all that by boring you with that. It's kind of a catch-22. Anyway, so Season 2. Let's talk about a little bit of the first half, shall we? When it first aired in the US, when we were all getting it at the same time on Nick, and there was no everyday airings in the UK, when we all discovered the huge plot twist that the UK also has Kids Bop. I'm so sorry. Was that even a British accent? So the first half, I would say, for me, was a little rocky. If you watched my Looking Good Rocky, nope, wasn't looking good. If you watched my reviews of the weekly episodes back then, I was really worried it had a bit of a super season curse. I think a little bit of that might have been psychological, because people were talking about it a bit. But I was worried it had the super season curse, meaning in which the second season is lesser than the first season for whatever reason. But let's be honest though, second seasons are super seasons and super seasons are second seasons. Like, the word super being in front of it didn't somehow make it worse. I mean, aesthetically it didn't look good, but like the word super being there didn't somehow affect the quality. So honestly, like, Beast Morphers Season 2 would have been the same level of enjoyable even if it was called Super Beast Morphers. It's a superficial bit. They're still the same thing. But regardless, I thought that there was a decline in quality in the first half. I thought it was a very lackluster beginning to the season, and then we had this long stretch for the first half of filler episodes that felt very in line with stuff from Super Steel or Supercharge, where it felt like the moral lesson was taking the front seat. It was very heavy-handed. The first season definitely had that, but they felt very heavy-handed. We got some cool stuff with the Beast X King. I liked the way it was supposed to be a defense bot and then became the Rangers gear. I was a little bit mixed on the idea of making Megan not a jerk. I feel this season had problems with, like, kids know that there's people that are just jerks, right? Like, that's not a bad thing to let people know. But the Beast X King stuff was cool, and the cliffhanger leading into the second half for Hiatus was very good. But for the most part, I would say I only enjoyed like 30–40% of the season, and I was quite worried about it. And so when we got back for the international airings, I was curious to see what we would get. And it was far from perfect. There were some things I really didn't like. It's good to be human. For the most part, I was immediately surprised, especially by the first 5–6 episodes, which were very connected. I mean, we hit the ground running with the Evox stuff with the mayor. We knew that was going to happen regardless. But out of nowhere, Dr. K appeared. Now, we knew Dr. K was going to show up, but I did not expect it to be in this episode. Lots of us theorized it would have something to do with Venjix, like it did, but I did not expect her to appear in our first episode back. We found out about the Ranger Vault, where Nate has this archive of previous season Ranger tech, which not only was cool, but it wound up playing a rather huge role in the rest of the season. And then you roll into the Chaku arc, which was the Space Sheriff Gavin adaptation, which was surprisingly good. I liked Chaku. I thought he had a nice little arc. He was actually a nice little developed character, and that also tied into the previous episode and the succeeding episodes. It tied into the Ranger Vault. There was this character named Ryjack who was trying to get the stuff, and then after he was destroyed in the Chaku arc's end, we lead right into the next arc. The next episode picks up with them trying to find Ryjack's ship, which leads us to Keeper. In retrospect, I should have known. The episode was done called Finders Keepers. Like, come on, son, I'm the dumbest boy in school. There was lots of situations like that in that season where I felt really dumb. I mean, I am really dumb, but I really felt it. I did not expect that to happen. Like, in retrospect, I would have maybe thought Keeper, but I did not expect the Dino Charge Rangers to show up. So, you have Keeper showing up. They have all these Ranger villain weapon cameos. Can a weapon cameo? And then the Dino Charge Rangers appeared. And we essentially got a 3-part or a 2.5-part crossover. And the first part was effectively a Dino Charge team-up. It wasn't the best team-up of all time, but it was very enjoyable and a nice surprise. Again, like with Dr. K, it was something I knew was going to happen, but it happened when I didn't expect it to, which I mentioned in the individual reviews I thought was really nice, because like, we knew about this, so it was no surprise, but the fact that it snuck up on us, essentially, the fact that it snuck up on us made for a nice surprise. And then, so, one cool thing about this season here was As you guys know, in previous seasons since the dawn of time, aka Samurai, we always have every season one Halloween special and one Christmas special that are anywhere from 60 to like 80% a clip show. And this season, we did not get them. Beast Morphers 1, we did, but this season we did not get Christmas and Halloween specials. Instead, we got that sports special, which was effectively a regular episode that was placed when the Olympics were supposed to happen. And the second clip show, special episode, which was not a Christmas episode, which was production order 22 or 21, was slotted in between the two main Dino team-ups as a villain clip show, in which the villains realize they can only revive the one villain, so they have to look at like villain archives. Now, the bad part about this episode was the terrible dub-over. Like, there's stuff about music rights and voice acting rights of why they couldn't get the original actors back, but it's just, we humans make things so complicated. How do you wholesale own a franchise and not be able to use the music or the voices? I just don't know. Like, it almost would have been better if they just played an episode of In Space on Netflix and recorded it with their phone and spliced that audio in. But that was the bad part. Did it make for some entertaining Dino Thunder Kid jokes? Sure. But it was awkward to have, especially since the voices for Andros was like, "Come on, you're my sister. Hey lady, the youth of KO35. See, Dino Thunder Kid jokes. It was such a more cool use for a clip show than our classic Christmas episodes, and it was a nice surprise. Like, the cable listing had that as the Jason episode, and then all of a sudden we're getting this clip show and Korag shows up, and they had Korag's voice actor because it's Venjix. So, even though I hated the voices, I thought it was a cool use of a clip show. Like, if they have to use a clip show, they used it in a really cool way that became this bridge part 2 of 3 in which we got the introduction to Goldar. It's a dang shame we did not get Goldar's real voice, but I thought it was cool. You know, not perfect, but I would take that over our generic Christmas clip show any day. Then you have Grid Connection, which was very mixed for me. And when I do my overall series review, I'm definitely going to rewatch this episode at least one more time, probably 2, to get a better feel for it. And it was cool that we got this. It was cool that we got Jason back. It had some moments, but it felt like kind of a letdown. You know, your mileage may vary. You may have loved this, and you know, that's fine. You may have hated it, that's fine. I kind of sit somewhere in the middle. I think my disappointment came from the fact that we had such good build-up, as I talked about in the previous reviews. Like, honestly, what we got wasn't too far off from what I was expecting. And I really didn't care all that much about the Dino crossover personally. So I had like very low expectation and desires. But then we got the surprise Dino Thunder episode and the surprise clip show and the surprise connectivity before that. And so then all of a sudden my expectations raised a little bit. Not like crazy, but I thought, wow, they actually know what they're doing. And so it was very awkward. I thought the way Jason was used was awkward, his performance was off. They should have let him keep the beard. He looked badass with the beard. I know, because when I take my beard off, I do not look great. That's my review of Beast Morphers. Should have let him kept the beard out of 10. The way he was used was awkward. Like, they had that meteorite that had the power coin that called him out of the portal. Especially since they made a big deal about how all the Ranger dimensions communicate, it would have been so easy just to call him up normal. And it's funny that we very rarely get an explanation of where Rangers get their returning powers. But like in this case, they did it, but it made me more confused. Because last time we saw Jason 2 times, he had the powers in Forever Red, and assuming it was him in Super Mega Force. So maybe they thought we would be confused because Rocky had the red powers in Dimensions in Danger, but I would just to say that it was the Ninjetti powers, or the ninja powers, you know. I don't know. I thought that was weird. And the whole thing felt very empty. There wasn't a lot of interaction. It basically felt like Jason was weirdly introduced to line everybody up to do the Sentai footage. I would have liked to seen some more interactions. I mentioned it would have been nice to get people back from Dino Thunder, at least the voices. Like, they managed to get Ika Darville back for Clash of the Red Rangers as a voice. I just think more could have been done with it. I talked about it more in my review. It was just a bit of a letdown for me, primarily because the build-up gave me more confidence than I should have had. Then we hit a stretch of filler episodes, which were very mixed. I will say that I think they're better than the first half filler before the hiatus, whereas the first half felt like they were, like I said, primarily focusing on the moral and felt very super season-y. But these ones were more character-driven, like the one with Nate and Steele and Ravi and Roxy and Zoe. And there was a moral mixed in or a lesson or something, but they were a little bit more character-driven. And so I still think that the Ravi Roxy episode, Roxy was definitely wrong, guys, to look at the phone. Don't snoop, don't do that stuff. But I still think Ravi was being dumb for just not explaining the situation to her. I think that I'm just not a fan of stupid misunderstandings. I think that's why I wasn't a fan of that episode. The Zoe one I thought was pretty decent. Not the best. I felt like the lesson was mixed. Like, I guess the lesson was that she shouldn't try to solve problems on her own without her team. But Zoe's, I don't know, I respected Zoe's initiative to try to solve it on her own. Like, I guess she should have just let someone know where she is. Like, you know, don't forget to keep your geotag on so we know where you are. Got your life alert? But then the Steel Nate episode had some cool moments, and it was a nice lead into Steel's final arc in the finale. But I'm gonna be honest, I was not a fan of the musical episode. I'm very wary on musical episodes. I'm not a huge fan overall. Like, I love the Magicians ones because heart magicians. But it was weird. It's not my cup of tea. It was never gonna be my cup of tea, this musical number. I was never going to like it. But my main frustration with it came from the fact that it really happened. Not just that like the show decided to do this, but like in universe, I'm sure the costume changes didn't happen. I hope. But like apparently all of Riptide joined in a musical number like it's freaking Grease. And PR is a crazy, silly show, guys. But even this felt out of place for me as someone who's been watching the show forever. And I know, it's for a kid's show, you know, but again, I've been watching since MMPR. And even during MMPR era, when they would do something dumb like this, there would always be a reason. It would be like another dimension, or a spell, or a dream sequence. And even, it reminded me, as I said in the review, of Victor and Monty, when they would get really cartoony and do like frickin' Violet Beauregard stuff. Even in PRU, it was too cartoony, it took me out of it. And this should have either been a dream sequence, or what I think would have been best is have Nate Steele stand up on the table and do the dance number, and he's imagining all that in his head. Again, it was never gonna be my cup of tea, but it took me out of it. I know some people are gonna say I'm taking it too seriously, but it really did just feel off. Again, having watched the show so long, they almost always come up with a reason, even for the dumbest stuff, and that was just, I couldn't believe it happened, you know? I didn't hate it, I just didn't like it at all, and it was terrible. Then we get kind of into the endgame arc, and I've mentioned in a couple of the videos how I do wish that they had started sort of endgame momentum earlier. I feel as if a lot of the seasons have had problems with that in recent years, especially this one. It feels like the villains were like, villains knew, like, oh yeah, we're in the last 5 episodes, but the Rangers were sitting over here like, it's great to be human. There was good build up with the villains, Roxy and Blaze finally, or Robo-Roxy and Blaze, finally getting some focus like they did in the first season with some smart plans. Kind of an unfortunate end for Robo-Roxy, but it was kind of like she did it to herself. I thought Robo-Blaze's plan was cool, like it was a smart plan. He kind of got a disappointing ending after that, but I still wish that it had been real Blaze, and I'll get to that when I get into sort of a character discussion segment quickly at the end. But it was decent build up to the end, and then you have the RPM stuff. The long theorized fan theory that Venjix and Evox were going to be tied together that was prophesized all the way back when Go Busters was announced, and it wound up being true. Evox was a portion of Venjix, you know, and they had it so that Nate basically freed a portion of him when he was experimenting with the RPM morphers. And I thought the twist worked well. It was not perfect, but it made a lot of sense. They had Evox's original voice tone, which went a long way, and I think it showed even more so since we didn't have original Goldar. Dr. K came in to mentor Nate, who was in a similar situation, and that worked really well. I thought Dr. K's performance was on point. Dr. K was on point, if you know what I mean, like, damn. Her performance was on point, it worked well, it felt natural. Honestly, I loved the Dr. K stuff far more than any of the Dino Team Up stuff. Knowing now that it's like a side sequel to RPM, I would have loved more RPM integration in the storyline rather than the stupid dinosaur stuff. But the Dr. K stuff was great. The finale felt like it had decent stakes. It was a pretty easy solve, definitely like an easy solve, an easy defeat for Venjix. The Colonel Truman cameo was also a nice little touch at the end there. I liked the sort of epilogue-y nature of kind of finding out where everyone is. I still wish that Steel's return had been more like they revived him with the machine instead of it just being robot magic. I thought that was a little bit too cheesy. The second half was overall more surprising. I think there was lots of really cool treats in it, especially for longtime fans, and I think that it was very imperfect. There was lots of stuff, especially in the filler, that bothered me, but I think for the most part, with the level of connectivity and they're showing with the storylines, it was a sign of good faith, in my opinion, or a good sign for the future. And I'd like to see that more in the future. And like, every cameo isn't like, oh my god, it's an anniversary event. Like, I just like the idea of PR becoming more connected the way it used to be back in the day, and I think they showed that here. They got the ball rolling in Dimensions in Danger, but where the universe feels connected now, but now it's universes that feel connected. And so I think that was a huge plus for this season, is that level of connectivity, and I think there was a surprising level of serialization within the plot itself from when we came back from Evok's snare through the Dino Team up, which was very impressive and very unexpected. But then my main problems with the season come with some of the character stuff. I think Blaze and Roxy, regular Blaze and Roxy, were severely underutilized. I think those characters had a ton of potential. You could have dealt with the guilt, you could have had Blaze go evil, you could have had an arc about Blaze realizing he was a jerk, because Roxy was sweet before she got turned evil. Hats off to both of their actors, to Colby and, was it Lana? Lana Lang. It's Lana Lang. Hats off to their actors. They do a great job of playing fun to watch evil, but also super likable and nice. But Roxy was shown to be sweet before, then you have evil Roxy, and then sweet Roxy again. It made sense. But Blaze was a jerk before he became an avatar. And the fact that he's all of a sudden super Stepfordy, I got, you know, white teeth guy, was way off, and I think there was lots of potential with that. You could have had a whole arc about him learning to be a better person, you know, kind of like with Jared, where you acknowledge that he was a jerk. I'm gonna do a separate video talking about Blaze and Roxy's role in the series overall and the missed opportunities, because I have a lot of thoughts on that, and I don't want this video to be 30 minutes because I spent half the video going on. But I just wanted to say I think that Blaze and Roxy proper were completely wasted, and even their Robo counterparts didn't even get, in my opinion, proper focus until the last 5 episodes. I think most of the other characters were fine. I think there is an instance, or a couple instances, like with Devin and Ravi, where it felt like they did something out of character because the writers needed them to be somewhere. Like in the crossover episode, Devin all of a sudden only cared more about games, which felt very ill-fitting to the progression he had made since the beginning of the series. I feel Zoe was very underutilized, I think, in the series period. To be honest, she's my favorite of the core 3. I liked her energy and her attitude, her I solve big problems, and I liked the whole sort of laundry rags to riches story of her becoming yellow, and I think there was a lot more potential with her character. I'm gonna be honest, as time went on, I'm not a Nate fan. I don't know. He's just kind of, you know, like snobby, and he always looks like he's about to cry. Like, his whole character, as the series has gone on for me, felt like the embodiment of Tom Haverford fake cry. Like, oh, Chris, I got our gift. As time went on, I just don't like Nate. I'm gonna be honest. Like, nothing against the actor. And I was afraid to say anything because of all the drama with Blake Foster, what he said about him. I just wasn't a fan of the character. Like, he rubbed me the wrong way. He felt like snobby prep schooly, and there was many times when there was some sort of problem or something brought up, and he had this like, that couldn't possibly be it attitude. And I'm like, dude, what was that about? And like, I don't know, I just wasn't a fan of his energy. I kind of liked his relationship with Zoe, and that was pretty well developed, and they had nice moments. Like, even after they got together, they didn't forget about it. Kind of like Calvin and Haley in a way, and it kind of came around, so I did appreciate that, but I'm not a Nate fan. I think that's kind of why, in retrospect, I wanted like good Roxy or Blaze to become gold. I'm like, yeah, not a Nate fan. On the other hand, I adore Steele. He had a ton of lines. I kind of regret not bringing them up. Maybe when I do my re-reviews for the US airings, I'll try to write down some of the lines, but he had some great lines, and like, I love how he was obsessed with getting Chaku's, basically his Zord, the Bloop and Terra thing. He had some great lines. I love Steele as a character. I think he had a good, satisfying last arc with becoming human. Like, again, no offense to the actor, but I do feel that when he became human, it was odd the way his voice came out. I almost wish they would have just given him a normal voice. It's just like a uncanny valley or something. Like, I didn't like that. I think that the actor didn't match the voice. Like, it was okay for the body swap episode, but like, I just wish they'd let him have a normal voice or something. But I thought he had a very satisfying conclusion to his arc. And I think the beauty of Steele was kind of similar to Antonio for me, where they took kind of the base of what made his Sentai character, or his Sentai counterpart, interesting and entertaining, but then they made it their own to the point where I'm both a Jay and a Steele fan. Ben and Betty, Honestly, I thought in general they were a step up from Victor and Monty. They did not annoy me nearly as much, but I think the second season they took a bit of a dive. I thought in first season they had a lot of endearing moments, and moments where they showed that every time they pick up an object, they're not going to bring the house down. But in this season, I felt like it was constant. They were stepping all over nice moments. And it seemed like they were completely incompetent until the finale, when they had some of that good season 1 stuff where they actually showed moments of them being normal beings. And I wasn't a fan of them in the second half. I honestly like the actors. I think they're good comedic performers and they've had some good delivery. But the second half, like, especially in the first half of season 2, they were hardly at Grid Battle Force, and they felt like they were on their separate show like Victor and Monty, and I think they were very oddly used in this season, and there was so many nice little moments, or like a serious moment, or even just like a bonding moment between a father and son or something, that they would step all over it with their faux Boken Skull music. Some quick little last bits. Commander Shaw, I did like the development of her becoming more accepting of Ravi, which led to the end, which I thought was very nice. I kind of like how all 3 Rangers had an arc with their parents. Like, on the villain side, I kind of wish the Mayor Ewok stuff had gone on longer. The actor that played his dad also did a good job of playing good and evil with that. And as much as I loved the Evox Venjix stuff, Evox was a pretty generic and not all that great villain. Again, I kind of headcanoned it that he wasn't as smart or powerful because he wasn't complete until he became full-on Venjix again. Overall, I would say Beast Morphers Season 2 was an imperfect gift. I think that it was a good sign of faith that things could be going in the right direction and that things could get better for the franchise in the future. I definitely think it was a step up over some of the last Neo Saban seasons and some of those mistakes. And I think, like I said, it was a good sign. I don't want to be too overly optimistic, but I think it was a good sign. There was some great connectivity, some great cameos, some better character stuff, some more interconnected serialized storytelling, so I think it was good. But my overall main complaint, even amongst the things that I just complained about, is still the general way that the show speaks to its audience. It's like they're trying, because it's a carryover from the Neo Saban way, which was a carryover of trying to mimic the old Saban way, but yet somehow not even doing that right, because not even a lot of old Saban didn't even talk down to its audience on that level. And I think that's the main thing this franchise needs to change in the future. And it's not just because I'm an older fan and the other older fans, but I think you'll widen your audience of kids' age range if you don't talk down to the audience like you're Barney. Mainly I harp on this a lot because this is how I felt when I was a kid. Like, obviously, you know, kids and adults are going to notice different things in the way the tone is when they're watching it, but a lot of the stuff that's bothering me was stuff that bothered me when I was younger. And so there's got to be other kids out there that are bothered by that too, and that we could have other fans of a bit of an older age range within the kid group if the show wasn't talking down to it. Overall, Season 2 was very imperfect, but had a lot of cool moments and was a pleasant surprise coming off of a weak first half, but the second half had a ton of cool moments. It was exciting to watch the International Airings. I looked forward to it almost every day. It was a chance for a surprise, and that's what I'd like to see more in the future. Not talking down to, more connectivity and more surprises. If I had to score this season overall, I would probably at this moment give it a 7.5. Now, later on, I will be doing an overall series review where I talk about Beast Morphers as a whole with seasons 1 and 2, kind of more of a broader picture. I'll try not to repeat myself too much, guys, I promise. But I am going to be covering the domestic airings here in the US for those that are watching those live, so I'll be re-reviewing that. And around close to that same time, I'm going to rewatch the first season and whatnot so that I can watch the whole series close together and see how it feels as a whole. So look forward to a full series review later this year, and maybe I'll kind of get some distance from some of the things I liked and didn't like, and my opinion may change a little bit on that. But what did you guys think? For those of you that watched this season, did you enjoy Season 2 overall? Especially the second half, did you think it was as much of an improvement over the first as I did? You know, in retrospect, it makes the first half seem even more like a super season. But let me know what you enjoyed about it in the comments. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you get notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.